Hello, beautiful people. Happy Friday. Hope everybody had a good week and has some fun stuff planned for the weekend. So, since it is Friday, and I'm sure it's been a long week for everyone, myself included, I'm going to try not to make this video as long as some of the other ones from earlier this week. So let me dive in and get started. So, like always, a few announcements. I posted a painting of mine. It was actually the very first painting that I had done, called Inside a Baffling Mind. In the article that goes along with it, I started to dabble with the idea of time as we know it, and I'm having that lead into a post that I'm going to post tonight. It's a little bit spookier of a story, so I figured Friday night, it's like a campfire ghost story that I'm not sure if that'll show up before I post this video or after, but I think you'll find both of those interesting. And like I said, everything ties together and has meaning. So I wanted to start addressing the concept of time and multiple timelines and history repeating itself, time and time again. So, one, I kind of realized that, I've been saying for a while, everything happens for a reason. Divine timing is at play. But in order for me to fulfill my purpose to the best of my ability and become whole, there was clearly some stuff left here where I grew up that I needed to come back and once and for all heal from, so that I can be my true higher self moving forward. So I had been thinking that for a while, and I got some clarity and a confirmation that that is the case, that when we go through trauma as like a coping mechanism, as a survival tool, we will leave fragments of our soul and keep moving forward. But if it goes unhealed, like you lost a part of you by never addressing it, never going back and fixing it. So part of Operation Hope, part of my mission that I'm currently on in the current timeline, was it was a retrieval mission for me to come back and take care of some unfinished business here before which will allow me to collapse timelines and go on to a higher timeline. I know it sounds crazy, I know it's hard to understand, but I've always been fascinated with the Mandela effect. So I was really down that rabbit hole trying to figure out what exactly is the Mandela effect. And I'll do a deeper dive on that at some point moving forward. But in my research of that, I came across Philip K. Dick, who wrote The Man in the High Castle, and then they made it a show on Amazon Prime. And it basically is an alternate reality where the Nazis and Japanese had won the war, and it basically took place in like San Francisco and New York, and then there was like a neutral zone in the middle of United States that was kind of like the Wild West, where if you're a rebel or a revolutionary, like, you could live free there, but it was, governed itself, I guess you can say. But I watched the show, I didn't read the book, but it actually talks about the exact thing that I'm referring to. There's basically these movies that The Man in the High Castle shows to try to help people remember the way that it could be. And there's certain individuals who actually jump timelines into the different result, like us winning the war. So I believe there's multiple infinite amount of timelines that are occurring. And I've been talking all week about figures throughout time and attributes and things that they embodied, beliefs they embodied, and how there's a lot more similarities between all these figures in different belief systems and throughout time than we talk about. Like, it's more than coincidence. I believe that a lot of these figures, so we had just entered into I'll do a deeper dive into astrology and talk more about the specifics of this, but just put it this way, the energy is shifting. It has shifted with the alignment of the universe. The first time that we experienced this energy of this new shift was in May of 2023, which just happens to coincide with when I got the idea for Team Up for Hope, and I had like the most energy and drive and focus to do something that I've ever felt in my life. Now, anyone who knows anything about astrology, like, we go back into retrograde. So a lot of last year was spent back in the energy that we had been living in for hundreds of years. So throughout time, there's been all these periods of enlightenment where it seems like a renaissance of art, the Renaissance period, art and philosophy, and getting back to these ideas that aren't new ideas. History repeats itself. It's proven it time and time again. So what does that mean? What is actually happening? So I believe that the truth is not learned, but remembered. that during these times where this energy that we've just entered into and we're going to be in for the foreseeable future, that we set what we do now while we're in this energy is going to set the tone for the next, it's like 500 or 600 years, I believe. Now, this isn't just me making things up out of thin air. I did listen to a 4-hour podcast on this that went back the last 8 cycles when we were in this energy has all been the periods of time where this like revolution and the rebellion and the enlightenment and things that created change had occurred. For example, the last time we were in this energy was the American Revolution and French Revolution. So they're like massive shakeups in the ecosystem. Like I said, I'll do a deeper dive on this topic specifically and do the research so I can be accurate. But I don't know how long we were in that energy last time. But it basically set up, reshuffled the deck, if you will, of balancing out power. It's the universe's way of restoring balance to itself. So, why do I say that? I believe that that's what we're about to see unfold. There's a lot of lessons from previous revolutions and rebellions and things like that. Like I said, I'm not storm the castle type guy. I don't want to knock somebody out of a powerful position just to abuse that power. I don't necessarily want to have a position that is responsible for the day-to-day of running anything. Like, I'm not power hungry. I never wanted to share my life and speak to the masses, but for that very reason, I guess that's why I've been chosen to play this role. But I've also been chosen to play this role because I understand the mistakes of the past. I've, without knowing it, studied the revolutions and the players involved in these types of things and where they went wrong and the cycle that continues to happen. So my theory is that these shakeups or reshuffling of the deck is our chance to not learn, but remember the ancient truths that exist within us all. And then we must pass down those principles, those values, those morals to the generations to continue. So I assume that what happens is these great civilizations go through these periods where they're at the top, everybody's enlightened, awakened to the truths. They build these great societies, these great civilizations, and then the energy shifts again. The universe keeps moving, and then seeing what we've learned. I say the universe loves to test us as individuals, and I think as a society, as a world. I think we've always been undergoing a series of tests, and I think it's exam time to see what the next, I forget what it was, maybe 40 or 50 years that we're in this energy, what we do with it, because that could really lay the groundwork for 500 to 600 years after. But, just like anything, when you see like a third generation family business, a lot of times you start to lose, that third generation, that's not his role or purpose or passion for the thing that his grandfather started. That's not what he's meant to be doing. So he's not feeling fulfilled. He's not living his purpose or doing what his soul intended to do. So the business kind of changes and isn't the same as it was when his grandfather, that was his passion, that's what he built. That was his legacy. I think this is our time to build the legacy for the children, and then it'll be up to them to see what they're going to do with it. But the kids that are young, like my daughter right now, there's an opportunity not to do all of the damage that a lot of us had done to us. Like I said, not purposely. We just forgot. But when we remember, we can do things different, and we can grow and evolve. And by evolve, I mean resort back and remember the ancient truths that have never changed from the past, that figure after figure throughout time, when you actually dig through what their true beliefs was and what they were saying, they line up. They embody the same elements of great leaders and gods and goddesses that we worship, but they get rebranded. It's like a spiritual revival, but a rebranding. Like Jesus Christ and what he embodied then turned into, as time went on, a money-making venture for people who tried to control and profit from him. Like, that wasn't the message that, or the things that Jesus embodied. Profiting and building the gatekeepers and the people who guard the real truths, because we can't handle it. It's let's just call it what it is. Like, that's designed to control the masses. That is manipulation and control over the mass population. Knowledge is power. When you have it and others don't, you can be outnumbered and still win, which is part of the story that I'm telling. That I had certain knowledge and information that an entire group of many people who were opposed to me didn't believe that I possessed. For me, keeping certain things to myself, which I'm going to start sharing, how I did certain things that I've done, it proves that the same trick that I pulled on them has been in their bag of tricks. I mean, it's the same thing that's been occurring throughout time. Like I said, we restore balance and go back through an enlightenment period where we change the collective unconscious, tipping the scales back to balance, to the, good light, like creation, art. We're putting beautiful things out into the world, and then that energy shifts back, and slowly over time we start trending in the wrong direction, back to where we are today, where there's the few in power in their secret organizations, like, the Freemasons and these I don't even know, like, obviously I'm not a part of them. I'm sure there's a million others that operate solely to keep useful knowledge from us peasants, the lesser than. They all have superiority complexes over us and think we're not deserving to live happy, peaceful lives. I've been preyed upon my entire life because of who I am, because I was different and just naive. They thought that I was too nice, that I had to be faking. I was hiding something. So they viewed me as, an injured gazelle that they could run down. But that time's no longer, that's not the timeline that we're on anymore. I've collapsed those timelines. I'm now, like Orion was, the hunter. I'm the alpha wolf that is going to literally continue to stalk them until justice and the truth comes out. It's time, and I'm not talking just the people involved in my story. I'm talking bigger. It's not just this lifetime for me. There's many lifetimes of being treated the same way. I can feel it. I know that this isn't the first time I felt the struggle of what it's like. But we're blessed to be living in this day and age because we have an opportunity that a lot of people in the past didn't have. We have that energy aligned in our favor right now. So the enlightenment period is upon us. And because my story is so bizarre and I've literally been by myself surviving it, which isn't, like I've said before, the point of life. It should not be survival. But that was the position I was put in by the treatment of other people. But I am no longer hiding or just defending myself. This is my offensive. This is my exposing the truth, called whistleblowing or whatever. The whole snitches get stitches, but like, there's a difference when you don't sign up for that life. I agree. If I was willingly participating in something with a group of people, I wouldn't betray them to save myself. That's the type of person I am. But I didn't sign up for this. I was targeted. I was harassed. I was stalked. And when I say stalked myself, I don't mean I'm reaching out to them or stalking their social media or any of that stuff. I'm not concerned with them. I'm talking by doing exactly what I'm doing right now, just telling my story, both through the written word and on here, and speaking on the things that was behind the reason they wanted to shut me up in the first place. Because they had a lot of knowledge that they didn't share with me about my own life. A lot of people knew what my destiny was, where I was supposed to go. And they didn't want me to get there. They wanted to steal my gifts for themselves. Sounds crazy, I know. But a lot of people who pretend not to know about these things, they know a lot more than they share with people. A lot of people also are just, like I said yesterday, puppets or pawns in the game. They get used and abused by the people without realizing it, just like I did. But that's the point, is I want justice for any innocent person who's just trying to be good and do good. I'm improving myself and committed to this journey. I know what it entails and how strong I'm going to have to be to accomplish what I'm going to accomplish. But there's no other option for me. This is what I signed up for. This is the legacy that I leave And, I know there's a lot of people who are never going to give up until something drastic happens that forces them to. But for anyone who thinks that I've been bluffing, I don't know, it just seems to me like you're not great at reading the table when you're playing poker, because there's nothing I've ever been more serious about in my entire life. I've said it before, you will literally have to kill me before I stop coming after the truth and demanding justice for all of the people who you guys swindle, injure, murder, to literally advance your own self-interests, how you treat people's lives like a piece of trash you just throw in the garbage. It's honestly disgusting. And in the new earth, that's not gonna be accepted. It's not gonna fly. So yeah, like Orion, I'm gonna be on the hunt. So if you haven't been a good boy for a while, I would be concerned, because you're going to probably be one of my targets. Anyway, I want to, on that note, talk about an example of what I mean by these periods of time, and potential example of two figures who embodied. I had talked about it with some other people like in the past, but this one, I talked about Isis earlier this week, and then Jesus' mother Mary. They both basically are like the sacred mothers. Isis with Horus and Mary with Jesus. They both started in service of the common people and later rose to have a significant say in, how things were going and how to treat people, and just embodied all of the qualities of the divine feminine. They're like the high priestess, ultimate divine feminine, of just like those qualities poured out of them. So you have ancient Egypt, probably during one of these enlightened periods. And then you have Mary and Jesus telling the same story, history repeating itself. Mary becomes, I proposed that Isis was not always a goddess, that she was at once a human who was the bridge from the 3D to the 5D. So if you believe Mary was a virgin, is it a stretch to think maybe she was chosen by the divine, by the universe to birth Jesus, and then that would make her basically the bridge between the universe to the divine and to the people? And then they both ended up being known and worshipped all over the world. I'm not saying that they're the same soul. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I don't know. But they certainly feels like they were one of the 144,000 chosen, and they were kind of the poster, the billboard for what it is to be nurturing and loving and caring and a protector of their sons. Is it all that different? Which one you idolize or worship? If they embodied the same ideas and concepts, what is the difference? I fail to see why that would bother somebody if they virtually have all of the same qualities and they were both for the people and service and birthed like historical figures that were impactful in their own right, Horus and Jesus. To me, it's the same story, teaching the same things. The only reason I could see why somebody would get upset about that is if for some reason you have some sort of financial interest in the idea that one is greater than the other. I don't think at this point that's even a question anymore. It is just the way that it is. But I'm not trying to destroy the Catholic Church. Like I've said before, I have no problem with good people who like going to church, but this idea that they somehow embody the messages throughout time, that these people who were clearly enlightened and operating from a place of making the world a better place, the things that are being taught and you're not embodying those qualities. Like judgment for no reason other than to judge. It's not a quality that they embodied or preached about. I was somehow lesser than when me and my ex-wife got married because I wasn't Catholic. They were like doing us a favor, basically, allowing it to happen. Like, it wasn't my choice, obviously. I wouldn't have gotten married in the Catholic Church, but, you know, I didn't have much say about things for a long time. But that's not accepting and the qualities that Jesus or Mary would have told you to operate from. You have no problem accepting large checks from people who are basically rallying an army to go after one person who just asked to live his life in peace. And you sit there and have an issue with the things that I say, which you can disagree with. I have no problem with it. I'm just doing research and pattern recognition and seeing the similarities that are clear to me. You don't have to agree with it, but you also don't have any right interfering in my life and attacking me to stop me from doing it. That's literally organized crime. That's what the mob does. Which, another one of my favorite books, The Family by Mario Puzo, discusses the Borgias when the Pope, I forget which one, they had a show on Showtime. I didn't watch the show, I read the book. But there was an organized crime family, like just running out of the Vatican. I think it was back in the 1400s, if I'm not mistaken, but just make no mistake about it. That's exactly what it was. And like I said, we're naive to think if that's how things were, that they've gotten better. History repeats itself. There's always the same cycle that we fall into. We forget and just let things get out of control. It's time to wake up and start to learn, to remember what's truly going on, what we're truly dealing with, and how important it is to make the right choices over the next 50 or 60 years to set up this world and not literally be the reason that the next great disaster happens. I mean, I don't want to speak for God or the universe, but I feel like if we keep heading in the direction that we've been heading, we might have to take more drastic measures and maybe just start from scratch again. I think he's given us another chance to possibly get it right. But, you know, there's one thing I've learned. People don't tend to like listening to me. They don't think anything I say ever has value. Once again, your opinion. Ever tried to change people's opinion? Never forced my opinion on people. Like so many people really love doing with me. They can't handle. I mean, I can get along with anybody. I have no problem. If you're a good person who just believes something different than me, I don't see how that's that big of a deal. But yeah, I see it seems to really bother people when I say what I believe. They think that they have the right to take some sort of action against me because what I believe makes them uncomfortable. You know what makes me uncomfortable? Being harassed and attacked like for the last several years. Literally having to isolate myself and hold on for dear life as I'm getting bombarded from all directions. Think I was comfortable? And I still handled it with class and integrity and from a place of good intentions, hoping that, I didn't wish any ill will upon anybody. I just kept hoping that they would stop and do the right thing, which they never got there. Because they still think they somehow are going to be able to pull a rabbit out of the hat. They're not the magicians. They got the magic of the mind. I've been battle tested. My mind has been strengthened my whole life to be able to stand up. They're going to crack when the things start happening to them. The things that they had no issue doing to somebody else. We'll see. We'll compare who has the mental strength to make it through. You guys have just been able to relax and go about your own lives. You haven't had to change a thing. I've been the one that had to fight this whole time. So that's like going to the gym and training for my mind. So when the real fight happens, I'll have literally had years of strengthening and endurance to come out on the winning side. You guys just got comfortable thinking that everything's always going to work out in your favor. You've done it to people your whole life. Same tactics, same tricks. Never strengthened any of the other parts of yourself. You have your one-trick ponies. It usually works because people usually have the same reaction. They handle it the same way, so you already knew how to handle them. Just got attacked. But yeah, I don't think you guys planned for my reaction. I think like so many great boxers who win the belt, or like Apollo, even in Rocky, it's always the hungrier fighter coming up who knocks out the champ, because champ underestimated him, took him lightly. So let's move on to, I'm going to do I'll speed it up because I already talked longer than I had anticipated. So I actually have a bonus person for you today. These won't take that long. But I wanted to apologize real quick to Pythagoras. Yeah, I said the other day that he might have had a cult. But I realized for a second I was thinking in my old 3D brain. I'm sure at the time people would have called him a cult leader, had followers who believed something different. But he didn't have a cult. He just was trying to help teach people what's really going on. So before I do Spinoza, I wanted to talk about Pythagoras, who I couldn't find a definitive birth for him, but I know he was before Plato because he was one of Plato's influences, but he was Greek as well. So we know the Pythagoras theorem, but obviously he was a mathematician, and he believed that man was created in the shape of God, both man and nature. So he's basically saying that we're shaped by God, God's within us, and also nature. Pretty basic concept that many people throughout time believed. He was strongly influenced by ancient Egypt, which there's that again, where it all started with Isis and Osiris and Horus and Ra. Those qualities that each of them embodied just morphed and were represented in figures in Greek mythology, in cultures all over the world. Basically similar stories, similar messages, with dressed differently, just rebranded and resold. Even his ideas with Hinduism and Buddhism, those are much more aligned with a lot of the things I believe, with starting with self, mastering the self. The Eastern religions that aren't based around money and profit, but the self. I've looked into certain things with a bunch of different religions and stuff. I'll do a breakdown of all that at some point and really start connecting everything. But this is, once again, the Greek Egyptian connection is undeniable at this point. Just how the Greek culture basically just rebranded the Egyptians. So he established a school in Croton, Italy. It taught a system of beliefs that blended mathematical studies with spiritual practices. So yeah, we're talking sacred geometry, Fibonacci sequence, and the golden rule, and I don't know. I didn't really dig that deep into like what he thought. I don't know if he got deeper into numerology or what, but obviously he was a mathematician, so I would imagine a lot of things that we being taught about numbers now, like that was the same stuff he was doing back then. So importance of numbers and their ratios in understanding the universe. So yeah, exactly like what I was talking about with Fibonacci sequence and things like that. He believed in transmigration of souls and the importance of philosophical inquiry for understanding ultimate truth. So he's basically saying he believes in reincarnation, transmigration, and when we think philosophy, like philosophy or philosophical inquiry, it was the term, that basically just means asking questions to the self. Philosophy, like looking for answers, working it out. That's what all philosophers do, which is basically going inward and not running from questions and things, but posing questions, and all of a sudden the ultimate truth reveals itself. Movement of a soul from one body to the next. That's basically transmigration, which Hinduism, Buddhism, and a lot of the esoteric traditions, Judaism, which, wasn't Jesus Christ Jewish? And, it's said that Jesus, before he showed up onto the scene, spent time wandering and learning these other traditions. There's rumors that he was in Tibet. So you have a religion after somebody who studied basically all religions of the world, and then you shun and ban and look down upon people who don't believe in the religion that you believe in. Is it just me, or is that the most hypocritical, nonsensical really, think about that. If the story of Jesus and his journey before he became the guy, you're basically saying all the things he believed isn't the things that you now believe. You're worshiping the figure, not the message, not what he embodied. I don't know. Seems pretty straightforward to me. But in addition to possibly meaning reincarnation and the soul into another body, transmigration is often used as a metaphor to describe transformation in one's ideas, beliefs, or life experiences. So, transformation in one's beliefs, ideas, and life experiences. So doing things different, having an open mind, independent thinking, asking questions, and being willing to change your belief system and transform or heal into a healthier person with a higher perspective. Same message. Pythagoras was talking about, still sitting on a bench right now talking about it today. So I'll move on from Pythagoras and do the original scheduled person that I had planned for today, which was Spinoza. I think it's like Baruch Spinoza. He was born in Amsterdam in 1632, died in 1677. So his idea, I guess, like a lot of people classify as pantheism, or I saw somebody said it, they might call it something different, but I'm going to go with pantheism. If I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. But my understanding is that's what they called it. So Spinoza came before the Age of Enlightenment, so he was ahead of his time. A lot of people, obviously, in the Enlightenment started adopting a lot of these same beliefs, so he existed in a time where people probably looked at him same way people look at me. He's significantly influenced modern biblical criticism. So he wasn't buying what they were selling. So what did he believe? Basically that nature is God. The universe is God. An infinite, necessarily existing substance that possesses an infinite number of attributes, each expressing its eternal essence. Everything that exists is a manifestation or mode of God's infinite attributes. God is the only substance in the universe, and everything is a part of God. A single infinite substance which he equates to God and nature. The substance is the underlying reality of everything that exists. God is not a separate creator. He's the immanent cause of all things. Everything is part of God and exists within God. So, to simplify it, we basically, when we create, we are an expression of God. And when I say co-create, use that term, think of it this way. Think of ourselves as a limb of God. Maybe like an arm. When we co-create with God, when we're tapped in to the highest connection with him, we're that hand or arm that's creating this thing. That's like the highest expression of all the good qualities that he embodies. Nature is an expression of the beauty that he possesses within. But just like we often do to ourselves, we self-sabotage and put ourselves in situations that aren't good. And the entire exercise, like I've tried to explain, is for us to learn here, for souls to learn the ultimate truth of who our soul is and the beauty and the good qualities. He gave us free will, and the ability to self-sabotage, to treat other people poorly, to go down the wrong path, so we can experience the journey of getting back to the truth, to remembering the truth of what it's truly intended to be. Last week I talked about the appreciation, how you don't truly appreciate something when you have it all the time. Every day is a beautiful day. Like right now, it's absolutely gorgeous. But you don't appreciate a day like this in the dead of winter when it's 10 below outside and you still have to go out and do stuff and go to work. You certainly appreciate days like this a lot more when you know what the other side of the coin's like. So, my theory, and I'm not saying like this is all Spinoza talking, this is me going off on my own path. My theory is that if his theory is correct, and there's some things I agree with. I don't know if I agree with his entire synopsis of it, but I do believe that everything is connected, everything is one. I believe we co-create. I believe our intuition is our soul guiding us, trying to get us back to our higher self, to transform. And I tend to believe that we are here to learn and experience, and part of that experience is knowing what it feels like to be in that cold winter day where everything's dead and there's little hope, but you fight through and you come out on a nice spring day. The balance is restored and things are blooming again, and hope is back. The appreciation and the gratitude is back, and balance gets restored to not only the people of Earth, but to the whole universe, to the planet. Things are just better. There's more good and beauty that exists. And then eventually history will repeat itself again. That's how the journey works with like healing yourself. I've always said, not linear. We just keep trying to get a little better each step at a time, So, the 5D, there's no time, it's infinite. There's no past or future. But while we're here, the purpose is to see if we can pass the test this time, if we can figure out the way to unite and make a change for good that gets back to where we were thousands of years ago, where we were far more advanced. Like I said, it's not a learning thing, it's a remembering. It's the journey of both the individual and since we're all connected, we are all one. It's a journey of all. It's the test to see if we can overcome and keep fighting and keep going. So far, I've had to pass a lot of tests. I'm sure I'll have a lot more. Unfortunately, a lot of people around me have had a lot of tests. They've gotten so accustomed to cheating on the tests, copying their neighbor. But that was the old energy where you could get away with that type of thing. We're at a point where you got to keep your eyes on your own paper, study for the test, and if we don't pass the class, you gotta do it. Hard for a lot of people to understand right now, but I'm not looking for understanding. That was the old me. I used to do that all the time. Used to drive me crazy. Couldn't understand why nobody else could understand. I just, it's not a question to me anymore. Like, a lot of these things are just a knowing. As you start to raise your frequency and vibration, like, it's just a deep inner knowing. And there's a lot of people who will understand exactly the things I talk about because they've experienced it, and you can only see other people for as far as you've gotten yourself. So there'll be a lot of people who I'm just talking gibberish or another language, but for those who know, they know what I mean. The message has always been the same throughout time. We're here to remember, but until we remember, that's why I teach. Just keep people heading down the right path, and then at some point things will start to maybe click for them. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the first week of class. I was thinking for next week, I wanted to start with some of these figures and beliefs, and on the side of, trying to push society forward and make progress. So I think it only makes sense to maybe next week talk about some of the figures who really put us backwards, forced us to go in reverse for hundreds of years and sometimes longer by their greed and operating from their shadow and things like that, how they got people to follow them and just how much damage it resulted in. A lot of the stuff still today. So they wove this stuff so deep into the fabric of what we believe, or we're supposed to believe, that, it's really hard to start to untangle it and help people remember the way it's supposed to be. But it's part of the assignment that I give myself, is to try to keep coming on and just taking different approaches and angles at it until maybe some light bulb moments go off for people. But I will be posting, like I said, another dimension tonight, which, if you think everything I talk about is like fairy tale land, you probably won't like this one. But if you find this stuff interesting, this one gets weird. So you might want to give it a read. But hope everybody has a good weekend. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do this weekend, if I'm gonna be posting a bunch or taking the time off or doing a video or anything, but I'm definitely gonna start class back up on Monday. So yeah, we'll see what happens over the weekend. I might throw some stuff on there, maybe not, but regardless, Monday I'll start with the figures that we need to make sure we don't allow to continue running things moving forward. So I'll use some examples from the past, why we should have learned from these figures that we need to do some things differently. So that's what's in store. But yeah, love you all. Enjoy your weekend, and I will talk to you guys soon.